Hey, I'm Jermaine Morris here with the one and only Mr. Berry Accius.
Yes, sir.
Bringing you this new edition of the Say Something podcast.
Say something, say something, say something.
Where we get together and talk about the different things going on out here in the world, out here in the streets, out here in this life.
Man, it's heavy right now.
You know, all the stuff that we think that attention needs to be brought to, something that we feel that not only does the community and the world, but we feel we need to say something about.
Most definitely.
So a lot been going on out here.
A lot. A whole lot.
Whole lot.
You ready for November 29th, right?
November 29th.
That's voting.
Okay.
I mean, that just like when you hear incompetence like that, when Donald Trump said that, and it's just like, you know, of course, you know, people ran with it and it was hilarious because, you know, he was just saying this powerful speech, getting everybody revved up, and November 29th. And it was like, huh? This is the guy that, you know, like when you listen to his rhetoric and as a follower of Donald Trump, you have to ask yourself, like, this dude just flat out just got that whole, voting day wrong. Like, you know,
I was thinking of us like Thanksgiving.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Like,
you know,
November 29th.
And but nobody really says anything about that, you know, in his bunch of followers, which I think is hilarious and funny. So it's like, you know, we're in a sticky situation with both candidates. To be honest with you.
Well, there's a lot of folks who believe in him. Like, he's figured out a way to tap into a big sector of America that's been left out. You know, them angry, poor, and middle class white folks is on board with D. Trump.
Yes, sir.
Like, they think that he is the voice of the people.
Yes, sir.
That he represents them. The funny thing is, he realistically don't give, you know,
rat's ass.
Not one bit about him. Nah. But I always find that funny when I see what people jump on board with.
Yeah. Like
what they co-sign and their belief system that is just, you can't shake it. Mm. You know, and when it talks about, you know, what we say something about is when we talk about these politics, these elections coming up, you know, as a people, as a culture, we believe in the Democratic Party like it's the second coming of Jesus.
Yes, sir.
You know,
like it is Jesus.
Yeah, like we don't even question.
Not at all.
If you're the Democratic candidate, black people is just like, that's us.
That's us.
That's us.
And in a sense, the funny sense is when you do history, you find out that the Democratic Party really was never for us. Yeah. You know, beginning, and the Republican Party was more for us, right?
Quote unquote, yeah.
And the roles kind of reversed, right? And we've just now have really played ourselves into figuring and believing that this is truly the party for the poor, disenfranchised, for black people in particular, right? And it's never been. You know what I'm saying? No. Even with Obama being the black president, it's never been for us. All these parties are for corporations and special interest groups.
Exactly. And like that whole concept, I remember being a kid and my grandmother, she's long since passed, but she used to talk about, you know, Democrats are for black people and Republicans are for white people. And I was kind of like, okay, as a kid at the time, I was just like, you know, kind of, you say so. Like, I wasn't getting into no political discussion with grandma. But, and as I got older, I kept hearing that repeatedly. And it's funny, I had a conversation with my brother the other day, and he was talking about a guy at his job asked if he was a Republican. My brother was like, why would I be a Republican? He said, well, based upon your tax bracket and your family and, you know, statistically, you should be a Republican for tax breaks and for that. And he had asked me, he said it never even crossed his mind. He just associated Republicans with white people. Yeah. Personally, I just associate politics with white people. But
well, we don't, but that's the thing about it. We don't go that deep into it, but go ahead.
Yeah. And so, you know, listening to him, this was a conversation that took place, you know, within the last 7 days. And he was just as in tune as a conversation I had with my grandma 20 years ago. Like, just that the idea of, you know, if you're black, you just got to go Democratic. Like, we don't even question it. We don't hold it up to the light. We don't look to see if it's, you know, if it's real. We just run with it. And that's crazy to me.
Well, I think it's crippled us. At the same time, it's allowed us to feel, and I've said it to people several times, and I actually got done speaking to a bunch of college students at Sac City College, and I had the fortunate pleasure of speaking to these young people that want to get activated in their activism, and I basically broke it down to them. I said, just because it has a black face and it says a title like Democrat doesn't mean they're for you, right? Yeah. We assume because he was black, we assumed because he was a Democrat that Obama was going to be initially for black people, right?
Yeah.
And you have to understand that black people didn't even get him in. And in the same frame, you got to remember, black people jumped on the bandwagon of Obama when white people started taking him up and saying,
Exactly.
wait a minute, that's our guy, right?
Yeah.
We wasn't even tripping off him because in the same sense, because what we know is like, come on. We had the Reverend Jesse Jackson run and maybe a few other black men trying to go and be president. That ain't gonna happen, right?
Yeah.
There's not in our lifetime because we was sold that, we was fed that. But as soon as Whitey started saying, hey, that Obama guy is really something, we played our parts and followed suit.
Yeah, because I go back into, the old phrase that said, the president isn't elected, he's selected.
Yes, sir.
Because never in the history of your life have you ever heard of a junior senator who was barely on the job,
Barely.
all of a sudden groomed, prepped, and pushed to be the very next president of the United States.
I remember in Time magazine, I want to say it was like 2003, right?
Okay.
2003, I want to believe, or 2004, whatever. And they had a picture of Obama, and it said the next president of the United States.
Yeah, when he did, right before he did the Democratic National Conference, gave that speech, and everybody was like, oh, he speaks so well. He's so articulate. Light-skinned black dude, very well spoken, good pedigree on paper, mama white. Like that's
and he didn't say anything that made white people feel uncomfortable.
Oh no, there was no one in the room was willing to put the fist up at the end of his speech.
No. But at the same time, when we look at it, when we think about just framework on how it's been played to us, rich folks are the Republican and poor folks are the Democrats, right? And we look at it like that. I ask myself over and over, well, if black people don't fall into any of these categories, unless you're totally elite, like for a rich black person, it's best to follow the Republicans, right? You know what I'm saying? Because of all of the maneuvering they do for people that have more income, right?
Yeah.
But in the same sense, I'm asking, well, if we know we have powers and numbers when it comes down to selling and buying things, right? Why is it that we just don't incorporate our own party? Because when with Palin and some of those other white folks that were kind of upset about certain things that was going on in the Republican Party, they did the Tea Party thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, why aren't we doing the same thing? That I think that we would be a lot better for our own situation if we moved away from the ridiculous procedure of Republican or Democrat and created our own party and see how that works for us.
It'd be interesting to see. I agree with you in two parts. One is that it's one thing if you call it spending power, like where you spend your dollars and how you circulate them. It's another thing if your dollars actually have power. So with us, we spend our money on whatever. It'd be interesting to see if we started pooling our money and resources and tried to get a party going, if that would actually work. Like, they're known for putting the kibosh on stuff if it looks like we're going to rock the boat.
Oh, yeah.
But something that I would even say is if we sat there, did what a lot of these other groups do on the local level, they don't care who the party is. Like I think we talked about before, you never hear about who the Asian vote is. You never hear about, you hear about the Latino vote, but you don't hear about the Middle Eastern vote.
No.
And the reason being is because they're not party aligned. They're aligned with who's going to get done what they need.
Yeah.
So it's like, look, I'm going to come to you. If you're not willing to do what I need to do, I'm going to go across the street or down the hall to the other office. And whoever's going to get me done what I need is where we're throwing all our resources, votes, and whatever at.
Yeah.
I think if we became uniformed and united on that front, remove the title.
Yeah.
The whole Democrat or Republican is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Who's going to get done what you need?
And that's the thing about when we think about our numbers, right? And I think our numbers play such a critical part, and economics play the bigger part. And the same frame that you have those, when you talk about the Asians, like their numbers speak from money, right? Yeah. They don't have to worry about this, that, and shoot, half of America is in debt to them anyway, right? So I think that when we walk around here feeling that this democratic process is going to deliver us from the evils that have become the norm for black people in America, I think that we're highly miseducated and politically ignorant. And I think that because of our political ignorance, it plays such a part in our are dismantling because we're always kind of arguing. Like, I mean, literally, I will have debates for hours, for days on social media about why I say I'm not going to vote Hillary and I'm not going to vote for Trump.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you need to, because our ancestors died, yes, for us to vote, but our ancestors didn't die for us to be ignorant.
Okay, and this is, I agree with you. My argument to that is, whenever I hear your forefathers, your ancestors, the generations before gave their lives for your opportunity to vote. True, they also gave their lives for our opportunity to go to school.
Yeah.
They also gave their lives for our opportunity to be able to provide for our families.
Yeah.
They also gave their lives for our opportunities to further our education, to start our own businesses and do all. Y'all ain't on board with that.
Yeah, and then yeah,
like, you ain't fighting for that.
Nobody's fighting for a lot of things. And then when you look at it in a sense of how we know how evil and diabolical this government has been on any situation that has been able to move black people forward, right? Yeah. And we just, you still haven't seen it yet, but watching, that documentary 13th Amendment, you watch that and it's like, damn, you know what I mean? You in a sense, as a black person, it's going through what you already know and really looking at it like that. Yeah, that is kind of, we've gone through a lot. Going and seeing it as a white person, you really know that the extent of what we're saying, that you want to try to pretend like, it's not that bad, how really bad it is, and how really treacherous these politicians have been to orchestrate so many of the current problems and issues that we have today in our communities. Yeah. So when you look at the voting process and we look at politics of Democrats, Republicans, we got to move away from that framework because it's never worked. It's never worked, and it never works even when we have people on the inside because they're not willing to be uncomfortable and really challenge the norm of what this corporation, the American government, established.
Exactly. And I think where a lot of us, we fall victim because we align the word Democrat with the word democracy.
And with the word freedom.
Yeah, well, see, the thing is that when you associate the United States with being a democracy, then it would only make sense that which is supposed to be quote unquote for the people, then being a Democrat should be for the people. Yeah. But the problem with that is where it's flawed from jump is that the United States is a republic. And just, about putting it in the proper context, just if you're not aware of what the difference is, the difference between a republic and a democracy. So a democracy is by, for, and of the people, which means majority rules. So the best way to look at it is if you had 100 people in a room and 51 voted a certain way, it goes with the 51. That's a democracy. That's not what the United States is. The United States is a republic where you vote in a representative for the 100 people in the room. So if 51 people voted in Craig is now in charge of the 100 people in the room. If Craig passes a law or policy that only 5 people in the room agree with, 95% of the people in the room are not okay with this law or policy. It is law or policy until Craig is gone. So regardless, 95 people in the room don't like what's going on right now. Your majority does not rule. That's a republic. That's what the United States is. So get off the idea that that's why the word democracy is nowhere in any of the important paperwork that goes with this country. So that idea of it's for the people by the.
And like I said, to educate some of our listeners and some of those people when they check in on our different social media outlets. When you try to tell us, well, the Democrats have created these programs for the poor, shoot, the Republicans have too. You know what I'm saying? They all will do something to stretch their mind and their imagination because to get a lot more, you got to give a little.
Yeah.
Right? You can't not do something. And when we say that, people get all upset about, well, they're going to cut the welfare system. They're not. Nobody in power is going to solely cut all of the welfare system, right? Because they will take away some things. Yeah. But if you cut away the umbilical cord for people that they survive off of, you will then have Armageddon here. Yeah. That's when you'll see chaos move and navigate in America. When people are cut off from that umbilical cord where they no longer have nothing that holds them a prisoner to the government. Because if the government is not paying for their Section 8, is not paying for their food stamps, not giving them any type of assistance, well, why should I be loyal? Yeah. There's no reason for me to be loyal anymore because you're not giving me any incentive. When they give us something, and it could be the small, so it could be I have used to have $600 of food stamps. Now I got 300. As long as that 300's coming, you're going to sit there and stay stuck in your situation and be comfortable, and the government is going to continue to play the game that they've been playing.
Because what people got to understand is that when you look at the Republican Party versus the Democratic Party, it's, in the eyes of the public, good cop, bad cop. Yes. Good parent, bad parent. But you got to remember that if your parents at home, mommy's the one that gives you the nurturing, gives you the hugs, daddy's the one that comes and gives you the ass whooping. They play for the same team. And so, like,
both sides,
you sitting there thinking that one is siding with you over the other. Now, they already discussed this before they came in your room. Yeah. Like, they've already got the plan. And the difference is why it's important to understand how this works and why this is a republic as opposed to a democracy, is because in a republic is ruled by law, not the people. So when Republicans come in, see, Democrats will be like, oh, they gave us this handout, they gave us this program. When Republicans come in, they change the law. And that's why law changing is so important, is because that's what the country is run on. That's why knowing proper status, the phrasing and wording of things, all that stuff matters, because they go off of the law books for this country, not people's opinion or your feelings.
And that's the reason why, as long as we've had some of these old, very dated laws and regulations, they seemingly don't change, because it was always meant to keep a certain few in power.
Exactly.
That's why you don't go back and eradicate certain things in certain constitutions and the Bill of Rights. You don't,
all that stuff,
because it all continues to keep that bloodline of that power source in power. But people don't want to believe in that. People want to believe that, okay, this does matter. And I will not knock it, because I do tell people, hey, if you're going to vote locally. You know what I'm saying? Vote, check out those propositions. I've seen it work.
Yeah,
for
stuff
the
that
people.
actually affects you every day.
I've seen it, with, I want to say, what was it, Prop 47 that we was pushing before, and was it Prop 47 or Prop 57? I'm not too sure. I forget. It was one that they had in 2014, and it really affected a lot of our incarcerated men and women, and it also those felonies that they were being stuck on and can't move now turned into misdemeanors. So I can see that it actually happened. But in the same content, when you're moving forward to where we're at right now in place, just solely thinking that, oh, I'm not going to go vote for Trump because I feel that we're going to be put back in shackles, but I'm going to go vote for Hillary because I feel she's going to help us.
And think them irons ain't waiting for you anyway. Man. If the irons is waiting for you, they waiting for you.
That's the least of our problem, and you have to understand controlling Congress is more important than controlling who's the president.
Yeah, and I think where we fall short and where we keep getting beat as a people is that most of us have no basic understanding of how the political system works. Right. So regardless of, let's just say you can't even vote. You caught a felony at 19. You can't even be a registered voter. Being so far out of the loop on how stuff runs, like you'll be on board with stuff. If you can vote, if you can't, the campaigns that we go on, the stuff that we complain about, the way that we go about things does not work within the framework of the political system. Huh. So we don't even know how it works. The same way we don't know how money works. The same way we don't know how the education system works. Like we have one go-to response for all these different systems, and all these different systems work differently.
Yeah.
And I think that if we're going to get on board with, if you're worried about voting, if you're worried about who you're bringing in, if you are going to vote in your presidential election, but you are not voting in your local election, I'm going to look at you with the side eye. Like I'm gonna look at you like, if you like, well, I'm gonna make sure Trump don't get in office, I'm gonna make sure Hillary's not in office, but you don't know, all you know is who your mayor is, and most people don't know who the mayor is. You could pull the average Californian, half of them probably couldn't tell you who the governor is. 80% couldn't tell you who the lieutenant governor is. Most couldn't tell you who their senator is,
city manager,
what an alderman does. We'll complain about the school system. How many times you been to a school board meeting?
Not even pressure.
I don't know. Do you know who the superintendent is?
Not at all.
Nope. Do you even know where the school board meetings are held?
Not at all.
Couldn't even tell you.
Not at all.
You know what I mean? So I think our lack of knowledge about how the system works, but completely cripples us with our just down ass belief behind it.
Yeah, it's just like Jesus is coming to save us all.
Yeah, we
I'm just saying, it's just like that. I mean, come on.
Keep saying something to that. Now this is not, I don't knock nobody's faith system. And I've said it all the time. I said, if you pray to a star, if you pray to a cross, an old bottle cap or a lucky penny, whatever gets you through the day. If you clutched a bottle cap and it got you through some hard nights, I'm not going to tell you that wasn't real for you. But if you somebody who's like, put it in Jesus' hands, or I'm going to follow this guy because he's a representative of the church, which is what a pastor is, or a priest is, or what your reverend is. They're a representative of the church, just like your president is a representative of the corporation, just like your Democrat or Republican is a representative of the political system. If you don't know how the system works, like most people, okay, sidebar. If you are a Baptist, Methodist, Presbyterian, whatever, you got a pastor standing in front of you on Sunday, and you going with what the pastor says. But if ask your pastor, does your pastor speak Aramaic? Does your pastor speak Latin? Does your pastor speak any of the languages that the doctorate he's reading from comes from? No, then he's going off the Cliff Notes version of the book that he's telling you that you should base your whole salvation off of. Like, we just believe the dude on Sunday is just got all the answers because he read from a book, which is the dumbed down version of the original text.
Yeah.
You know, we just believe stuff just because somebody gives a good delivery.
Oh,
you know.
I mean, I could have made millions being a preacher.
Yeah, and if most preachers got a history.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think everybody has some kind of history, but I definitely understand what
certain fields have certain more.
Certain more.
Yeah.
Certain more.
Certain fields have a little more inclined to a certain kind of person.
But that proposition was Proposition 47. I just want to make sure of that. But in line to all those different things, when we look at the scale of where we're at, and why we fall into these certain belief systems. These belief systems are programmed. You think about it. What I think you were saying the other day, like Hillary Clinton on her campaign spent like $200 million.
Her campaign, the Super PAC, they got together and they raised nearly $200 million when they did the count.
$200 million on advertising for her to basically try to convince us that she's a good person. Yeah. When we have homeless people right now, while it's raining, it's snowing from the west coast to the east coast right now, that have no place to live.
Yeah, $200 million to help her get a job.
Not guaranteed.
Not to do the job. Not to do the job. Just $200 million to help you get a job.
The attempt, and then when you look at that framework, and then when we look at both of the candidates we have. Now, you gotta love politics, because politics brings out the ugly in people. It really shows the true face of what we are and have become in this American culture. So none of the stuff that we're seeing, if you go look into it, and I remember watching a TV show, and I remember when George Bush Sr. was going out against Dukakis, right? And Dukakis had a double-digit lead, right? But then there was some controversy about one guy, Willie Horton, that he didn't, because of he was against the death penalty, and I guess they were saying that he was open for people like these criminals to get free weekends, and he ended up killing and raping. It was just all this materialized media hype about what he did. Not saying that it wasn't warranted, but when they put that out there, they put out the fear campaign. And a lot of politics is based with ignorance and fear. So here's a fear campaign. Dukakis lost because of that, right? Then as you kind of look at it with Bill Clinton, right? Again, it was the fear campaign. It's like these criminals, right? These super predators. And in the same sense, he's playing a saxophone, and black people like, woo, yeah.
He smokes weed. He's on the Arsenio Hall
and he's getting head. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, he's black, right? You feel me? He's getting head. He's playing our cultural music, and, he's smoking weed. He's our guy. Yeah. But then in the same sense, the 94 law bill that was passed probably has pushed us back further than crack cocaine, right? And now when you look at the scope of who we have this rhetoric of Donald Trump, Mr. Racist, and then we have the manipulator and liar and politician of Hillary Clinton. People are upset when you say, I'm not going to vote for either evil, as if you are doing something wrong. And I look at him like, so you're basically telling me cancer or AIDS. I say, how about none?
Yeah.
So we have to really try to figure out, are we in belief in believing in the person, or believing that the person may do better in that situation?
Yeah.
But when you look at the background, especially if we're looking at a political stance, neither Republican or Democrat has ever really pushed the agenda of the black people any further. It's always been little steps, little steps, little steps. It's never been something over the top to where we can embrace. Because I'll tell you right now, one of them other efforts are talking about some reparations. You got me.
Okay, so
start talking about reparations, and we talking about something.
I agree. And so going off of what you just said, the frame that. So you get we dealt with Reaganomics for 12 years.
Jesus Christ.
Ronald Reagan then went into the first George Bush. We dealt with
Richard Nixon, the war on drugs.
Yeah. Which his cabinet, his administration
they came out. It was a lie.
Yeah, well, they came
out. The war on black people
came out blatantly,
and
said, just so you know, it's not somebody's opinion or innuendo.
They said it.
His office, his administration said verbatim.
It was a war on hippies and black people.
Black people. And
people still are like, don't look at that. That's the ignorance of our people. People still see, like, here is the evidence. Hillary Clinton got more emails where they're showing about the foundation, especially in Haiti, because that's my homeland, where they were getting rich off of these foundations.
Yeah.
And still people are like, well, I'm with her.
Well, here's the thing, and keep all this in when you start talking about these prior presidents. So we had Bill Clinton. This is what I talk about where it makes a difference of where law is versus what they do for you. So while Bill Clinton put more money in people's pockets by way of the breaks that they gave through Medicaid and you have more money in circulating throughout the economy. That's why at the same time he was simultaneously passing the mass incarceration bill. So the law that went into place was going simultaneously. So you got a few more dollars in your pocket, Kansas City Shuffle. So you got a few more dollars in your pocket. So you were like, hey, let's go to the mall. Let's ball out. Meanwhile, these laws are being put into effect that are coming for your ass.
Man.
So now you take Bill Clinton, who had a history of infidelity to his wife, whatever, smoking weed, which was an illegal substance at the time, who was doing all this sort of stuff. You lead that into, that's the type of man he was. By virtue of a human being, Barack Obama is probably the cleanest guy who we've had in president for quite some time. Like by if you're gonna go to the scorecard by way of as a good dude, forget his ability to do the job.
Yeah.
We're just gonna say by virtue of his history, there's no sordid past, there's no blemishes. He didn't cheat on no history test. Like he never slapped Michelle. Like there's nothing on. Like by virtue, he's probably the squeakiest, cleanest dude who's been in office and who knows how long. This man is leaving office and done absolutely nothing for us as a people. So if you think the dude with the cleanest hands didn't do nothing for you, what you think these dirty mother effers that is coming in is gonna do for you? I mean, when you really frame that, like the cleanest dude didn't do nothing for you.
No. And you got people with hands dirty, gotta pay off this,
the blood, mud still dripping.
I mean, and you people are really gonna believe, oh yeah, they're gonna make a difference. And then some people really gonna believe, like, oh well, if that person's in it, blacks are going to start getting shipped to these prison camps all throughout the United States. I much rather have blatant racism in front of my face than systematic racism, because systematic racism has done screwed us.
Yeah.
When it was, I know you think I'm the N-I-double-G-A,
yeah,
it kind of worked, because I have to have mine.
We know where this is.
Yes. Our relationship is pretty much patent to this is who you are, this is who I am. When it's like, well, no, we kind of want you to come in.
Yeah, okay.
It's like now when you're ready to get me out, I'm in the shower taking a nice, getting my stuff clean. Next thing you know, you kicking the door and pulling the you know what I'm saying, the shade, and be like, yo, you gotta go. Yeah. I'm out here naked. So it's like we have to get out of this idea of being so ignorant and blinded to what it truly is and start educating ourselves on what we need to do. The reason why they can play us so well is because we are never ever thinking 10 years ahead, 20 years ahead, 50 years ahead. We're just always thinking, like everything else, instant gratification.
We stay in the moment.
Right now is the moment. I'm going to capture that moment. I'm not going to worry about the next few moments, I'm just going to worry about this moment and move on.
Okay, like for us, the reason why, we stay surface. We are do you know why Rolex watches are so expensive and why they're...
I have no idea.
So the way that the timepiece works is that it's fluid motion. That's why they don't tick. Like the way how precise that they're put together is why, like if ever shows you a Rolex, you put it up there, if you can hear it ticking, you know it's fake because Rolexes don't tick.
Yeah.
Us, we're hung up on the fact that the front face says Rolex. We're hung up on the superficial of what it looks like, what comes with what it looks like, and what people say about us for what we wearing. The people who care about Rolexes care about all those little intricate little screws, all the little cogs that move together that make a Rolex a Rolex. That's the system. If you don't pay attention to the little screws, the little cogs, all the little laws, all the fine print, all the details, you're going to get beat every time.
Every time.
And we get hung up on the belief of the name Rolex.
Yeah.
We get hung up on the name this,
Yes.
the front face that. We got to get to the details, get to how the system works. Because it's not like the system is not, it's not invincible. It's not that you can't make some changes and adjustments. And the reason why I say that is because 100 years ago, homosexuality was a mental disease. It was. It was a mental disease. And 50 years ago, they used to curb it by shock therapy. Like they would strap you down and run 50,000 volts through your brain to try to shake the gayness out of you.
Yeah.
Now, the gay and the LGBT community is getting executive orders and laws changed from the presidential level down.
Yes, sir.
Through Congress.
Yes, sir.
You can make systemic changes, but you got to learn the screws. You got to learn the details. We over here just all on the front face. We got a whole lot of ticking Rolexes over here wondering why we getting laughed at and dismissed.
We want to be comfortable in revolution. We want change to be comfortable.
Yeah.
We look at the hoses. We look at the dogs biting. We look at the lynching. We look at the
we
death.
ain't about that life no more.
We are not ready for
We're
that.
not about that
We're
life.
not ready for someone to kick in our door in the middle of the night and maybe drag our child, drag our parent, or drag us and bring us to some woods, and we may not come back. We're not ready to go toe to toe with white supremacy.
Okay.
We're not ready for that.
Props to your boy, J Rob.
Oh,
Josh.
Okay, Josh.
Josh, young cat. He put a post up.
Josh, that's the soldier. Shout out to Joshua, man.
Shout out to Josh. I saw a post he put up, and I thought it was real. He was saying a quote. He said,
"Oh yeah, I know what you're talking
you
about.
want a revolution, but you can't run a mile."
And that's the truth.
Like that's real. Like you say you ready for revolution, but you can't run a mile. You ain't built for this.
No, you ready for revolution? You say you want revolution, but yet and still, here comes October 31st, and you dressing up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? You clowning around. You know it's okay. Let me get my moment to, let me chill out from all this revolution stuff, right?
Part-time revolution.
Yeah, let me chill out and let me now get back into supremacy. And I mean, do what you feel like you need to do to get by. But this whole thing, and the reason why we continue to be stuck on stupid on stuck, and why they play us like a flute, why a white woman who has a husband that is a foul kind of human being, and you apologize now after the fact, but in the reality, you got a woman that can just come out here, be blatantly a liar, and use racial undertones, and just do the nay one time and pop up some hot sauce, and now she's our savior. It's like, or even better yet, she'll get some of the black mothers that children have been murdered by the henchmen, and now all of a sudden she's for the black lives. I mean, when you can go ahead and do that over and over and over and over again, repackage it in a black face and saying, hey guys, I'm going to do it. And even here locally in Sacramento, right? I think even though that Kevin Johnson got a pie put in his face, and I denounced that, he's a phony. And I say that because now all of a sudden you're with black liberation, with black power. When the 50th anniversary comes of the Black Panthers, now you want to be a stand-up general and talk about when you met Huey Newton and all this other things. But in your community of Oak Park, it's Whiteville. Ain't no black people running in there like that.
Spearheaded gentrification.
Like so these moments and these things, and you want to bring real revolutionaries in front to have them speak and try to highlight them to kind of get some street cred. It's corny to me. It's phony to me. And it's like, until we understand, realize, play the game the way they play it, and separate to create our own, to kind of cause more friction. Because here's the thing. What's important is the black vote in some kind of concoction, right?
Yeah.
If we now decide, man, we're not voting this way. Matter of fact, we're going to start our own party.
Yeah.
It switches up the narrative. It changes up the game. And if we get some real key brothers or sisters that are politically savvy to kind of be able to move us to where, well, you know what, let's start talking about reparations. Let's start talking about better education. Let's start talking about cleaning up our community the way it's supposed to be clean. Let's really tackle the issue about police brutality and violence in our community between each other. Then you start moving the angles. But when you constantly have these Negroes who come in there high in a suit and speaking is good because, you know, at the end of the day, they are the Negro savior, because every Negro I talk to, when they ask me questions, they say, well, what's the solution? And then where's the leadership? First of all, the leader's in you. Secondly, the solution is continue to build. Yeah. Stop begging. Stop always feeling that, well, if we don't go this way, it's the wrong way. Why don't we just start going our own way and let's go see how that works?
Okay, and I agree with you. And what I'm looking at, okay, so when you take these other groups, these other cultures that come in that by virtue of percentage are low. Like, you know, the Middle Eastern percentage, the Asian percentage, like just by numbers is lower. They come in like all these. This is just so we can frame it how all this stuff works. When it goes to, like I said, it's a republic where you get representatives in, and they have these things called lobbyists, and their job is really to just to get stuff in, to get stuff passed, and it takes money. We don't collectively pool our money together. We don't collectively see that how you make your money work. The way that the system is set up, it's like a cover charge to get in the club. And we still trying to figure out ways to just, man, you can't just hook me up. You can't just let me in. You just can't slide. No. If you go to a restaurant regularly and you're the dude that's known for buying $300 bottles of wine and racking up $600 tabs and this, that, whatever, when you show up, everybody's your best friend. And you get stuff that you need. You get the table when there's no more tables left. You get reservations when they're booked for a month. There's all these ways that work. That's how the system of this country works. So you can't get to the top by a hookup. You know what I'm saying?
I got the hookup. Holla if you hear me.
Yeah. Greatness is never on sale.
Shouts out to Master P.
You know what I'm saying? Getting to the promised land is never discounted. You know, you're never in your life where you're going to see a commercial for, you know, Maybach 0% financing. You're never going to hear, you know, we got the brand new Bugattis, we got the Christmas sale. You don't even see commercials for those because it takes paper to get it, and that's just what it is. We try to do stuff to where, man, you can't just, I can't get that. You can't just look out. No, Negro, no. This is how it works. That you need this amount to get in. No discussion. If you're not bringing this to the table, we can't even talk. And until we realize that we have to pull together, organize together, get our resources together, get our paper together, we're not even in the conversation.
Not at all.
That's how the system works. And so everybody else realizes it. Like I said, we get these other cultures that come in, don't give a F about a Republican or a Democrat. They just know how the game works.
Yes. They playing chess and we playing
Connect Four.
Like, straight up, man. We ain't even playing checkers. We playing Connect Four.
We playing Connect Four. There's too many moves in checkers.
Yeah. And as we say something on that, it's just the reality of how we analyze it and we do things. We are never ever secure with making the right move that says it's okay for separation. And I talked to my OG King, Dale McKinney, shouts out to my OG King teacher, and he brought, and we was rapping. It was like, you know, it's not about us hating white folks. It's not about that. It's about, as I've always said, leverage. And as he was saying, it was like, you know, it's about having options, man. Like, come on, like, if this don't work with you, okay, then I don't have to deal with you, then I'll go here. Yeah. But we have no options. It's like, it's screwed up, so we got to stay stuck in that. Yeah. And that's why the Negroes was worshiping Bernie Sanders. Because they was like, oh my goodness, we finally found
a dude that was going to give us a hookup.
Yeah. The hookup,
that's what Bernie was. Bernie was a hookup man. If you looked at him, he looked like a dude that walked in the barbershop with DVDs and fried chicken.
He was that guy.
Yeah, he's like, I'll take care of you.
But at the same time, like I said, Bernie really wasn't talking that language because he wasn't talking about that reparations, man.
And here's the thing: when it comes to reparations, legitimately, you think about all the other groups that have got it. When it went through the Asians for the internment camps and all that stuff they went through the World War. When it came to all these groups that we go over and bomb them and we give them all the kind of money and all these other groups getting hooked up.
Even groups that we ain't did nothing to.
Yeah.
We still paying.
The difference is that their degree of organization, their degree of pooled resources and influence is why hooking them up and doing for them, because they've already come in. You get the Asian community has already bought their $300 bottles of wine. They've already had their $1,000 tabs. They've already established a rapport of spending money, of having collective bargaining, of having a degree of leverage. They've already do that. So now, like, the biggest thing is when you become famous in America, you actually, when you become rich, you stop paying for things. Like, the biggest thing is, like, when you become a millionaire, you an NBA player, you walk in, everybody give you free stuff.
Crazy, right?
Okay, that's where these other groups are, because they have an established track record of having something. Of having organization, of having resources, of having leverage, of having influence. So now to hook them up is a give and take. When you come to the table with your pockets turned out and just a bad attitude, they ain't gonna do nothing for you. Get your paper up, get your shit together, then come back and see me.
Most definitely.
Which is why until we do that, there's going to be nothing for us. There's no recovery waiting for us, because we have to get rid of the mindset of what can you do for me? Eliminate anybody else. What can we do for us?
Yes, sir.
Have we given 120 to what we need to do? Have we given 120 to getting our communities better? Have we given 120 to getting our resources together? 120 for us building together. 120 for strengthening our schools and holding our teachers and superintendents accountable. 120 for holding our kids accountable. 120 for holding our siblings accountable. 120 for holding ourselves accountable. Until that process starts, then you can't sit there and say, why aren't you doing for me? Because the first thing they're going to say is, why aren't you doing for you?
We've done 150 on entertaining and procrastinating and continuing to blame for everything and anything that's happened. That's what we've done. We've done 150 for excuses, straight up.
Yeah.
150 for excuses, man.
And that's what we're viewed as. There's cultures who haven't been in America that long.
Yeah.
Black people are the running joke of all they do is complain.
Yeah.
All they do is whine.
And we do definitely have a lot of variable reasons for it.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that there's not justified beef.
Yeah, we are validated, but at the same time, we have to be on the notation. My quote, stop begging and start building.
Exactly. If you're dealing with a group that systemically has never done anything for you, like you have never been at the forefront of your best interest.
Never.
Yeah, never. That's just not the case. That's what it astounds me. Like, you live in the basement of a building that your heat never works. Your water shut off every 3 days. You can't track somebody down to fix your broken toilet. Like, since you moved in, there ain't been nothing but problems. But yet, either get your paper up and move, or damn it, learn to fix a sink yourself.
Yeah.
Like, but you keep complaining to the super every 3 hours, blowing up his phone. He ain't coming.
He ain't coming. Yeah. I mean, I look at it just in the simple fact of we're in a domestic abuse relationship, with America, and it's to me, it's almost kind of like, for everybody that's been in kind of something like that. I'm not wishing that upon anyone, and I'm not trying to make any likeness of it. But reality is this: you're coming home and getting your ass kicked every night.
Yeah.
Do you stay or do you go? Right? And 9 times out of 10, people that would they have their minds right, they're going to leave. So why is it that we continue to stay?
Stockholm syndrome, or you begin to fall in love with your oppressor?
That's what we are in love with that.
Okay. And take it a step further. Say if leaving is not an option. Like, say if you go to school and you can't change schools. You got this bully that's beating your ass for your lunch money every morning. At some point, you might want to learn how to fight.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and that doesn't mean take it to the revolution, take it to the streets with your gun, but that means that's finding a solution to your problem. Or it may be you link up with the 6 other kids that he's bullying, and now when he comes for your lunch money, there's 7 of you standing there.
Or at the same time, punch a bully in his face.
Yeah.
Because when a bully get punched in the face, they're not used to that. That sometimes wakes up the bully and be like, whoa, wait a minute. And I literally think that with all of the things that we can do, shouts out to Colin Kaepernick continuing to do his protest thing, but it's not as effective as if there was a herd of athletes, not only in the NFL, but then turn around in the NBA that are doing the same thing as Colin Kaepernick. You get what I'm saying? Because why I say that? Because it leaves it too open for him to be criticized. It leaves it too open for him to be marginalized and as if he's being a hypocrite. And I heard somebody on one of the podcasts say that he's a hypocrite, right? Because of he's making a stance for black people, but he's not making a stance for marriage equality. And I'm thinking in my head, like, dude, you're a freaking idiot for saying something.
Pick your spots.
Yeah, exactly. This is a issue that's dealing with black people, and sometimes because we've done so much for all other cultures, because when we were fighting for civil rights, that was a movement for everybody. It benefited more people outside of black people than black people. Okay, right?
And just so I'm so glad you brought that up. So as we framing this stuff properly, so people who think that going for black issues or doing things for black people is just for us. The Immigration Act. Like if you came over or from another country, your father or your grandfather, or maybe your great-grandfather, depending on how old you are, your family situation was bettered based upon the civil rights movement during the 60s. When you talk about affirmative action that took place in the 80s, affirmative action has done more for white women than it has ever done for black people.
Yes.
Okay, so all these things that we did, it's like, and this is now remove everybody else. This is where we need to be. Well, we need to say something to our people, and I go to Dr. Claude Anderson. He was saying black people need to not be afraid to say we need things for black people, because we kill ourselves because we do this multicultural, we do this civil rights. And I've heard some crazy names in my life. I ain't never met nobody named Civil in my whole existence on this earth. But Civil needs all these rights. Like, we need things specifically for black people, because when Asians need stuff, they go for Asian rights. Yeah. When Latinos need stuff, they go for Latinos. When the LGBT, they go specifically. But when black people, we need multicultural, we need civil.
Because of the framework of how they try to present every situation for us and convince us that we will do better with everyone. Yeah. When you sit there and tell, and I told the group of the students, the worst thing that happened wasn't slavery. Because I'm like, well, slavery was the worst thing that happened to blacks. No, integration, dog.
I make the argument that
you can argue what you want to. You can argue that, and it could be Jim Crow, yeah. But into integration, I say this is because that allowed us to really believe that if we gave up our culture, gave up our businesses, gave up our livelihood, like say for instance, you had the corner store, right? Yeah. The local drug corner store, but I had the Maximum Walmart. It was like, yo, what you need that for? Just let me go ahead, give you some cash, and you can just start shopping over here at this big Walmart. We got everything. Yeah. That was a better situation for you. In rights, it wasn't, because when they took away our ownership, the ability for us, like I said, when me and the OG was talking again, when we no longer have the option, our only option is to go to the white grocery store because we don't have that black grocery store.
But this is why all this ties in. When the difference between what happens in your day-to-day versus law. So when they sat there, when they changed the Jim Crow laws, this is where, okay, the integration was a twofer. They're like, okay, well, we'll let go of these laws, because had the Jim Crow laws changed without the compensation for integration, like, in case you're not familiar with the Jim Crow laws in the South, whatever, it was just a foothold on the necks of black people. Yeah. Like, they can just come over and just do whatever they wanted to you with no recourse or recovery.
Not at all.
So if you didn't address the Jim Crow laws, even if you stayed segregated, we'd still have problems, because we'd have a continuing flow of the Rosewoods and the Tulsas and all that, because there'd be no protection. So we needed to get rid of the Jim Crow laws so we could build and then be left alone to build. But instead, what we did is they changed the laws on the Jim Crow law, because the Republic, they need to put the stuff on paper. Fine, we're not going to do this, this, and this to you. But in compensation for what we're going to lose in our ability to do this, we're going to gain in taking in the accumulation of what you're doing.
Oh, yeah.
So that was the segregation. The integration was not, what we saw was, we can now eat at the same cafes and kids go to the same school. This is the difference of chess and checkers. Yeah. We saw diners and schools. They saw
in the bathroom,
but they saw acquisition of properties, businesses, and wealth.
Yeah, but at the same time, with that integration, a lot of us stopped having our own diners because now we feel like we're in. We stopped going and having our own Negro League because, like, hey, guess what? We can go play with the whites because it was programmed to us to look at, because we've always felt, because we've been dominated and we've been enslaved, that for some odd reason they should be and they are the dominant ones because it's been programmed in our system.
But that's where the difference, that's why I said the Jim Crow part, because if you take other because this is the thing, historically a lot of people have this wrong. You from Haiti, you aware most of the slave trade didn't come here. Most of the slave trade is throughout the Caribbean.
Oh yeah.
So the difference is between what happened.
You seen what happened when they got their ass.
But this is the saying. This is why the Jim Crow makes the difference. When slavery ended in those areas, white people left. There wasn't the 100 years of terror that followed the end of slavery. That 100-year mind trip is what screwed a lot of us up more than had slavery ended. There would have been an adjustment, which was what was happening. Black people who hadn't lost their minds were gravitating to each other. Like-minded individuals and the dudes who was on the fence were finding pockets throughout the United States to rebuild, reestablish, and be okay. It was the Jim Crow laws that did the mind trip part. Because when you're getting your ass beat, you're getting your ass beat. Jim Crow was the mental slavery. That was the like I said, the mind trip that messed a lot of us up. That didn't happen to a lot of other Africans because, like I said, when slavery ended, white folks cut out. You know, they wasn't trying to stick around.
But in the same sense, when you look at integration, right?
That's the part B to Jim Crow.
Okay, but what I'm saying, but when you look at the integration, call it the part B, call it whatever you want to say. When you are now defining and feeling like now I've made it, and you're not remembering the terror from those before and those that may come after, and then you start loosening up, right? You start loosening up. You start, well, you know what? I'm just going to start allowing Bob, who just 2 weeks ago kicked my fucking ass with his friends Joe and John. I'm going to, let him come into my house, kind of see more. And now you get them to really utilize, and they've always capitalized on our culture, but now they've utilized it to the extent where you're out. Like with hip hop, I was just listening to the radio stations. I'm like, who are these corny geeks that they got DJing our music, right? Who are VJing our music? I'm thinking in my head, like, God, this is only because we're so acceptant of whoever comes around. We're such giving people. We're such caring people. And we know nothing about ownership and be like, you know what? Check this out, man. You can be here, but that's as far as you go. Because that's what they do to us. They let us get in. But there's like a term. All right, you know what? hey, you're a superstar football player, but you cannot be a coach because you're a superstar football player. Yeah. Oh, you could be a coach, but you can't own a team. You're just a coach. When you start having to play that game to the point where in this system, where we're being regulated, when we could have just continued to be in our own system, when there's really no regulation, but the regulations come from ourselves, I feel like that's what plays this bigger part of why we're so stuck on stupid and looking dumber and dumber, as we always will be if we continue to feel like some white man in a red cape is going to fly down, just as if we think some white man comes down in the chimney and gives our kids some presents.
Yep. Because we've gotten ourselves to the point now to where 50 years past the civil rights era, and we're in a worse position now than we were then. But something that's interesting that goes along with this is that if you polling the average white American now, most don't feel that there's a racial issue in America.
Of course they don't.
Well, no, but here's the part of that. They did the same poll in 1963. Where nearly half the nation felt there wasn't a racial issue in America in 63. Because what their life looks like compared to what our life looks like is not the same. And
now it's totally different.
Which is why when you keep going to looking for the sympathies and the handouts and the help from people who just don't see your struggle.
Yes.
Like they just like okay.
Legitimately, they don't see the struggle.
Legitimate. And I'm not about being bad people, not about being calloused hearts, whatever. Something that I was overseas for a while, and I was in Spain. I was running with some gypsies. Like I had a colorful past for time.
Yeah, I can see.
And so I was working out there. I was like walking the earth like Cain and Kung Fu. But one thing that I learned from them is they were like, when you travel, like traveling across the country, is like how you travel at night, but you sleep during the day. And I was like, what are you talking about? Okay, well, imagine if you saw somebody sleeping under a tree at 3 p.m, you'd probably be quiet around them. You think, oh man, he's just taking a nap, whatever. But if you saw the same person sleeping under the same tree at 3 a.m, they're drug addict, they're homeless, they're this, that, whatever. Simply perception. When I was traveling, there's things that you start to notice because of the mindset that you're in. Opportunities, things are going on, like even folks that was looking to rob, whatever was going on, like you start seeing certain things. If that's not of your world, like it's just not the framework in which you live in, you don't see these things. And so somebody continually coming to you for something like, oh, you can eat 3/4 of a burger and toss it. To a homeless person, they watched you take that last bite, watched you throw it in the trash, and is trying to get to it while it's still warm. Like just your whole perception is different. We keep going to people who don't see us. They don't see the world through the way that we see it.
And they're not supposed to.
And you're trying to convince somebody that the world that you see is the world that they see. And it's Alice in Wonderland. They don't see the smiling cat. They don't see you're not going to get it. So we have to get out of the mindset of quit trying to convince somebody to see it like we see it.
I mean, it's like quit trying to convince somebody to feel your pain.
Yeah. And just recognize that, like I said, we got to learn the rules like everybody else. We're the only group that refuses to play by the rules of the game.
Well, I don't even think that anyone even really plays the rules by the game, by the rules anyway. I think everyone breaks the rules. I think we play by the rules that have been set for us. I think, I think we play by the rules because we are defined by what they say is liberty, what they say is freedom. So we stick to that script while everyone else is playing by their own rules that they've created. That's how I see it.
Okay, this is the only difference between I see and that is that they recognize that they know what stuff means. Okay, so liberty. Liberty doesn't mean freedom. So in case for the folks at home, what a liberty means is that freedom is the ability to do whatever it is that you're doing in the confines of whatever you're talking about without an outside or external influence. You are free to do whatever you want. Liberty is freedom within a certain construct or certain confinements. Like what I'm allowed. Your children have liberty within your house. They have liberty to sleep in this room, liberties to eat in this room, to eat this food, because you allow it. They're not free to do what they want. They're free to do what you tell them they can do. That's a liberty. We don't have freedom in America. We have liberties. So when other groups come over, they recognize the difference, the liberties, and they figured out that there's more than one page in this book. We read the first page and work within the first page. They're on page 762 in the 17th paragraph. The fine print. Oh, there's loopholes. There's angles. There's levels. There's all these different things. That's the screws. That's the little cogs. That's the details of the Rolex. That's how they're coming up. That's how a lot of them come up. We don't go into that stuff. We take the front page. We go with, well, you're told this. All right. And don't go deeper.
But at the same time, we're giving the rules. And this is what we're supposed to run from and run with. But in the same particular time, I mean, that's all America. All America is given rules. I mean, half America would not believe when you break down that you're not free. You're like, what are you talking about? I can go outside and piss on a freaking lawn, right? You can, but you're going to get arrested. You know what I'm saying? So in the same content, I feel that we stick by too many of the rules given to us as that's the option, where in reality, the loopholes, like you say, no one except us stick to the game plan. It's like we want to kind of like hope to goodness that this freedom and liberty that they speak of is true. And in reality, when people really know, nah, man, that's fictitious. This is what's happening. We're going to move and navigate like this.
This is why I say the influence of Jim Crow. There's no other group that's got that history in this country but us that applies to. So whether they be white, Asian, Hispanic, Middle Eastern, whatever, none of them came from that century of mental oppression and being messed with. We have a real scared mentality when it comes to dealing with stuff.
I think the Jews went through their thing.
Not here.
Holocaust, but at the same time, they went through it, but they was able to break out of whatever shell. And I think any culture besides us has been able to break out of a shell. And yes, it is different that it's been here, but my bottom line is this. I don't, whether it's a Jim Crow, integration, whether it's slavery, whether it's whatever we're going through right now, police brutality, if the Negro does not wake up, step up, stand up, and fight back, and I'm not saying in a physical sense, in the mental, at least the mental capacity, open up some books, start kind of researching what's what, and stop being so fearful of hoping Whitey is going to be able to do this for you and do it for yourself. Dog, we're going to be talking about this on our next podcast in 2025.
Yeah.
And if that happens, it's going to be a sick day, because in the moment that we learned all of this sick stuff in the 60s and the 50s and even further back, to be here in the present, to be like living this, and it's not as blatant, but it's still living this, because you don't get the white folks hanging around and with their beers and taking pictures with the Negro hanging from a tree, but it's almost just the same exact thing. We don't know what these police officers are doing on the off time, having beers at the little local pub, and yeah, man, got me another one. And it's not to say that all police want to kill Negroes, but at the same time, shoot, all white people didn't want to hang and lynch Negroes, but guess what? It still happened.
Once it becomes socially acceptable.
And it's become socially acceptable. People will continue to do it.
The death of black people has become a socially acceptable thing in this country.
And it is become a thing that we just play back, rewind, fast forward, run that one time again, and it creates that fear mentality. It again creates that endangered species mentality, and we are looked upon as a poor Negro, but not the poor Negro that you protect like a dog or a lion.
We the mark.
Or then we are that insect, that is that roach that for whatever reason they can't get rid of us, but the fuck they sure gonna try to exterminate us.
Yeah. Because things like this that go on out here in these streets, things like this that go out in this world, whether it be who you thinking about electing for president, whether think about what's going on in your local elections, what's going on through your school district, through your law enforcement, what's going on in your household. It's about, you can't have a fearful mentality, can't be scared of doing everything, can't be scared of rocking the boat, because the boat's going to rock if you move or not. You might as well move in a position that's going to get you someplace better. And you can't sit silent all the time. So sometimes you're going to have to talk it over with your kids. You're going to have to talk it over with your peers. You may have to talk to somebody who may be able to might have to do something to you. But at some point in time, you got to quit being afraid and you got to say something.
Say something. Soldier, stay silent. Say something.
Say something. I'm Jermaine Morris. I was bringing real life without the sweeteners here
yes,
with
sir.
The one and only Mr. Berry Accius.
I'm going to call you the historian, Mr. History Lessons. Yeah, you need to be teaching in schools, brother.
I've cracked open a few books every now and then. Where can folks find you social media wise?
Berry Accius, Facebook, excuse me, and then at Team Void Instagram, and then Berry Accius Twitter. I'm trying to get back on my Twitter game, man. I don't know, man.
I get it.
It's just so much. It's so unimportant to me.
Yeah.
But I get it. But I'm very reluctant, to kind of really just go so heavy. But I definitely understand that it's important. And then at the same time, Berry Accius YouTube. Shouts out to all my trolls, because I love those guys. I mean, you go to my YouTube, and like we said before, if you want to know racism still alive in America,
check the comment section. Mine is Jermaine Morris on Facebook, and it's J Morris CEO, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, all that stuff. So this is Say Something Podcast, and until next time, we'll holla at you.
Yeah, there.